Hey everyone, thanks for watching the CB vlog here on YouTube. If you like what you're seeing, do us a fave, quickly hit subscribe because it really helps us out. That's an easy and free way that you can help support the channel. Or if you want to go beyond that, you can head up our Patreon, patreon.com/commandersbrew. You can help support this show, the main show, the podcast. You can help support Battle of the Brews and all the other projects we're doing here. So check out patreon.com/commandersbrew. Get in on the Discord, help us brew our decks for the main show. But without further ado, we're going to get to today's topic, which is color identity.
Color identity. This is a topic that comes up from time to time. And we just want to talk about color identity. Is it too strict? Ooh. Are we, should we expand it a little bit? Do we still need to look at color identity? We're just going to have a little talk about it. Mm-hmm. The main inspiration for this is because there was a time. Well, before we get into that, let's just say what is the color identity? We identify the color identity of a card by all the mana symbols that appear in it. Mm-hmm. So if an artifact, which according to the rules of the game is colorless if it just costs 3 mana to cast, but if it generates red mana symbol or white mana symbol, perhaps a Boros key rune or something like that, that it counts as a red and white card because of that. This also covers creatures that are one color but have activated abilities of different colors. And this also covers hybrid mana that are both. But in a lot of these cases, you don't have to be in that color to cast them, but you're not allowed to run them in your deck because your commander doesn't have those color identities. So what's it for? What is color identity? What's the point of it? Why do we have color identity? I think it's a flavor thing. We made it when the commander was invented and it was called EDH. Color identity was just sort of a thing thrown in as a way to keep it interesting. Restriction does breed creativity, and that's a fun way to keep the decks unique and different. And I agree with it. But I mean, I don't know when hybrid mana was invented, but that's the question that comes up the most. Why can't I run a hybrid blue-white card in my Simic deck if I never need to spend white to cast it?
Yeah, this is one of the main rules topics that comes up on all the time with commander players. It's should you allow hybrid mana in a mono colored deck, for example, blue-white in a mono blue deck or something?
Sure. And what do you think?
I think it's correct the way it is. I think while yes, strictly from a rules standpoint, yes, I can cast this, so it makes sense flavor wise. Or it's not even strictly rules. It's just flavor wise. It's this can be made with all blue mana. It doesn't need to know about white mana. Yeah. So therefore, I should be able to do it. But the fact of the matter is, the card has a white identity as well as blue.
Yeah.
So we can't just put it in a mono white deck based on those same rules that everyone else is there is an argument to be made on either side. I just think that they got it right. The card's white and blue, therefore you can't put it in. It's pretty, for me, it's it's easy. Just don't include it.
I think that's easy too. I think I ultimately agree with you. I think that's a good place to land, but I think it's worth thinking about again, because when we started playing, the rule was if you somehow ended up with mana in your mana pool outside of your color identity, it would actually be colorless mana.
Yeah.
So if somehow you gained control of a Boros key rune and you were a blue-white deck, if you tried to tap it for red mana, it would actually generate colorless mana.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the way, they changed that rule to simplify the rules. I do agree with simplifying the rules overall. Mm-hmm. So now, whatever. And I mean, if somehow you get control of a weird signet and now you're getting mana you can't, you're allowed to have that mana. Mm-hmm. If you have lands that can generate 5 colors of mana, you're allowed to generate any color you want. And, this helps decks that try to steal things if you want to use their activated abilities. But then, is it worth revisiting that? Because, the flavor of the commander changes now. If you're able to do any mana things you want, now it just seems like it changes the landscape is different now.
It's tough to base rules on flavor, right? because
Right.
flavor is so subjective. We don't really know how like mana works in the world of
Yeah.
these creatures, right? Like, if you want to explore that a bit, like I know the question has been asked of like Mark Rosewater and I think the like story folks, like the people at Wizards who like deal with that sort of that side of it. The design, that's design, right?
Well, I don't
I
know.
think it is. Like Jace doesn't know he's blue. Like he doesn't know that he's
Right.
blue. He just does what he does, and that's blue.
Yeah.
And like so like the people within these like stories and so on, again, just getting deep on flavor seems kind of
Yeah.
silly, but like it's tied to flavor, so we have to do it. They're not aware of their color identities. They're not aware of what of the colors of mana that they use and that they are. They just do what they do, and it happens to fall under these colors of mana. So to like say that like a commander can't produce when he uses lands, like he can't produce anything that's not his own colors is like, but that's not tied to the commander. Like also, if you want to
Yeah.
get in flavor wise, right? It's like if you have a land that makes other things, like that's not strictly tied to your commander unless it's like command tower, which is always a confusing thing when you're like a command tower taps for any color of mana because that's like how I short card like shorthanded
Yes.
in my head, but it's not true. It
Yep.
only taps for what your commander is, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, so yeah, so to tie it there like flavor wise and then to use that as part of your rule is a bit shaky because flavor is whatever some person just decides. Whereas like a rule, at least we can like look at and point to. It's more of
Yeah.
a harder thing, right?
So how about a thought experiment for a second?
Sure.
What would happen if we abolished the color identity deck brewing rule? You were allowed to pick any commander you want, and you can put any cards you want in the 99.
Because of the types of mana bases we can create, I feel like you get more you'll have access to any color obviously, so I think we'll see like a lot of staple cards from other colors come in, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean, it just kind of becomes more like I don't know, like one of the other Eternal formats that isn't, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, like we're gonna see
I
I don't know,
agree.
just too
I
much of the
feel
same
like
stuff.
I feel like back in the olden days, mana having more colors was truly a restriction on lands. It truly became difficult to run more colors, and that was the price you paid. But I honestly feel with the amount of fixing we've been given over the years, since we're allowed one copy of everything, even if you're going to go with tap lands and tri lands and different types of fetches, and even on a budget, if you're not on a budget, you got even more options. I feel like having restrictive color like restricted colors based on mana is not hard anymore. Like you can do a reliable 3-color deck and hit everything you want whenever you want. Pretty fair. Like it's pretty easy to do these days.
Yeah.
Maybe not on turn one. Like, you know, that's where the human price of dollars comes into play. Like that's where, like, if you want to do it exactly on curve. But if you just want to be able to cast things, then like, yeah, anyone can very easily. So maybe that's the best part. Maybe the color identity is what keeps it that way. Otherwise, if you were allowed to put any card, I don't believe anyone would ever play a monocolor deck. And even I think 2-color decks would be very rare. I think most decks would be 3 with some splashes.
Yeah, you do a
for
splash.
4.
You just couldn't help yourself, right? You'd be splashing all over the place,
Yeah.
and that's what it stops. And I think like much like the color pie itself, you know, keeping certain abilities away from other colors, like this is part of what makes Magic the game it is, right?
Yeah.
This is what makes Commander the game it is. This is so therefore like it's all tied together. Color pie and then like same thing, right? So it the restrictions breed creativity because when you're in black red, you need to somehow figure out a way to get rid of an enchantment. And guess
Yeah.
what? That's just one of your things that your deck's not going to be able to do very well. Yeah, you can put in one of those 7 mana colorless things that hits a permanent.
Sure.
Sure. But
that's the price.
That's a lot more than a naturalize, like that's like
Yeah.
much harder to cast.
But you're great. But that red deck is incredible at destroying creatures.
Exactly.
Right.
Very
You've got
good at
the
destroying
best
creatures.
tools at that.
Going directly to the face, being very aggressive. Obviously,
Sure.
so there's trade-offs to be made there. The
That
thing
makes
that
it
we
great.
the thing that we come up against in Commander, as far as color identity goes, is like what abilities are sort of these evergreen like game mechanics,
Yeah.
and what abilities are tied to the colors and therefore shouldn't have access to everything. We've talked about this before, specifically with card draw, and how I think I agree with, like, you and we agree on this. Some other people disagree, which is fine, of course. But like, I think that card draw should be better in blue and better in other colors. But I think on some ways, maybe even just for Commander, maybe even just the cards that are legal in Commander, I think all the colors should have some access to a form of card draw.
Yeah.
Just to make the decks be able to play better from a
Yeah.
game mechanic standpoint, not from like a color pie thing. Like, I don't want to bleed the color pie all over the place. I really don't. I'm way up for keeping like hard barriers between things that the different colors can do. But like the fact that white simply doesn't draw cards is really bad. And it's just and red doesn't, but they eventually gave red this like impulse way to do it, or whatever it's called. Like, I can't remember what they like sort of
I
shorthand
think
it to.
they do call it impulse, as far as I remember.
Something like that, right? Where it's like, it's the exile until end of turn you can play it. It's like that. Guess what? That makes sense to me. That's cool. That's cool for red. White can be something as limited. I don't care. Like, if you've gained life this turn, you can only draw it this turn. I don't know, whatever it is, right? Something tied to one of White's abilities. We've talked about this before. I don't want to get too deep on it, but the idea of a game mechanic versus something that's tied to the colors is like, that's a real thing also.
So if we open up the color identity and just assume any commander can play anything, I mean, that might be an argument. We might see some more interesting Boros commanders, because we'd be splashing for the things that Boros decks can't do. Mm-hmm. It would be cool to see an Aurelia deck in Boros that's also splashing for maybe black for a little bit more removal, or maybe for blue for a little bit more draw, or maybe splash a Naya Aurelia deck that's getting a little bit of ramp going there. That could be pretty cool. And I think that might make, like, that would really beef up the decks. I mean, if you could resist, it's like anything. You could either just do the optimized maximum. The community would solve, like, if you don't care about commander synergy, this is the optimized 99 for every commander deck, right? Then like we would eventually get to Canadian Highlander levels on that. But obviously commander synergy would influence some of those choices. But I think, okay, here's a second thought experiment. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about this, about a house rule? What about a house rule where every deck is allowed one card outside the commander's color identity?
I mean, it's the same kind of questions. Like, don't you think that everyone would just kind of run a similar, like, it's like, if you're running Boros, then you must include this card, or
well, I don't think so, because the reason I think it might be interesting is because I suspect you would pick the most synergistic card outside of your color identity. Like, for sure, in a Gisheth deck, you're going to get one of those blue cards that turns everything into a dinosaur. Yeah. Like, so like in certain commanders, there probably is a right answer.
True, yeah.
But I think it could really expand just a little. I don't think people would just use it on a draw spell.
That's
I feel
true.
like
it's
very
true.
few people.
But like Ristic Study, like, you know what I mean? Like something like a very good one like that. Like, I think that would.
Sure.
I think you'd find that would honestly. Yeah, I think you'd find that would be the choice, like at least half the time.
Yeah, maybe.
Which is kind of boring. And like you gotta, and like obviously within like an actual, if you were thinking of like, if anyone was actually thinking of putting this into play, right? You would have, this would be very hard to actually enforce the rule of that like, who knows if you only did one. Exactly, right? Like, who knows? I'd have to see deck lists at this point, right? Because like, yes, okay, you played your Ristic Study in your Boros deck, but you might just be keeping your other blue card in your hand or something, you know?
Well, like, I mean, if that's the level of trust we're at, then we don't know everyone's got singleton cards in there anyway.
It's true. That is true. That is true. But you know, I mean, if you're gonna get nitty gritty about like having one card, like that is something that you know, people are gonna want to know about at the very least. But so I think it'd be very difficult to actually make happen. You got to draw the line somewhere, and it's like drawing it at 1 or drawing it at 0. It's like, well, it's just kind of easier to draw it at 0.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. I think I like where the format is. I don't mind that sometimes I wish I could put an off-color card into a deck. I think that's acceptable. Sometimes maybe it's not good to live in a world where all of your wishes come true.
Yes.
Because then it's like a weird... That is actually one of those secret curses where the genie like makes your life awful.
Ooh, the turkey's a little dry. Yeah. I agree. I think it's good to have these restrictions. It allows for people to like search their brains to find other solutions, you know, for problems that they're going to encounter. And I think that's part of the fun of brewing decks.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Great. Well, there you go. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for watching this episode of the CB Vlog. Again, hit subscribe if you like it. Check out our Patreon. And so forth. And check out Battle of the Brews right here on YouTube. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you love what we're doing, consider supporting the show by going to patreon.com/commandersbrew.
And if you want to get any of the cards from our deck list, go to our TCGplayer affiliate link below.
That helps us out too. And for a free way to help us out, consider sharing the show with some friends. Like and subscribe, add a comment or two.
See you later.
Bye.